Yes.
I like that.
Let's do that.
Okay. And we can make that announcement.
Yeah. Tammy.
Sit down, Tammy. Quit talking. These things work just fine at 47, 47.
What's going on? It's working? Alright. That's okay. He's gonna come. He's gonna choose the call. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can transcribe. Do you want to put the phone up there or? Yeah, I'll put it. Yeah, it's on.
Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. Tammy. Okay.
Miss
Tammy, we're
Lavallette.
gonna go again. Get in your seat.
Hypercapnia, which is excessive carbon dioxide in the bloodstream, typically caused by inadequate respiration, shortness of breath, increased excidity and toxicity, fear, anxiety, depression, rise in stress hormones, fatigue, headaches, immunosuppression, decline in cognitive performance, dispositional for viral and infectious illnesses. This virus is a 1,000 times smaller than the holes. This virus is 1,000 times smaller than the holes in the mask our children are wearing, causing the virus to easily pass through the mask. So please show me the science that supports the idea of changing your current mask policy. I have included, I want to submit the documents that my statement is based from.
Okay, you can give them to Mr. Zero. He'll make sure we get them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Drew Wood.
Hi, I'm Drew Wood, 3857 Harrowsfield. So I've got two kids. They're young, 5 and 8. My 5-year-old is starting kindergarten for the first time. We asked them when they started the school year whether they wanted to wear masks or not. We've been so excited back in May. Like our little boy, he was going to be starting school for the first time. He was going to be able to go back in person. He was so excited. And then suddenly it's August. And we realize we're still living in a world where COVID is spreading, where children are filling up hospital beds in Louisiana because people aren't taking this seriously. And we asked them, do you want to wear masks or not? And both our kids said unequivocally, yes. They felt safer in the classroom. They felt better. They would learn better if they were wearing their masks. They told us. And as a community, we make choices for the safety of our children all the time. All the time, to protect everyone's children, not just our own. We set 25-mile-an-hour speed limits in residential zones. We put seatbelts in our cars. We mandate that kids go into car seats because it's our responsibility as adults to make kids safer. We can't guarantee their safety, but we can make them safer for whatever value that has. When I buckle my kid into a car seat, right, did they cry some days? Yeah. Was it an annoying hassle? Sure. Are there too many straps and buckles? Of course, right? But did I do it every darn time? I sure did. Not because I thought that it was likely that we were going to get into a car crash, but because if it happened, I wanted to give them the best chance of being safe for whatever it was worth. And the thing is, it's not even my choice anymore for my kids' safety. It's not my kid's mask that's going to protect them, it's everybody else's. Right? Because my family, right, the adults in my family, they're vaccinated. But the kids whose families are sending them without masks, those are the families who are more likely to have unvaccinated adults in the home, and those are the children who are more likely to expose mine to this disease that could kill them. I wonder why my child is always the one who's being asked to bear this burden. Why is it my child who always has to sign up for online learning? If it's so important that your child not wear a mask, perhaps that's the child who could be at home, online, unmasked in the home, not endangering anybody else, not endangering themselves, and their mask could be off. But ultimately, this doesn't even have to be an all or nothing decision. Kids who are eligible for masks in high school make their choice. If you're that scared of COVID, you're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, that's your choice. Great. Everybody's protected as best we can. But for the kids who can't, for the kids who are too young, until they actually have a chance to get that vaccine, those younger schools, they should have a mask mandate.
Thank you. Kelly Wood.
Hi, I'm Kelly Wood, 3857 Harrisfield Road in Sylvania, 43560. Thank you, Dr. Motley and the board for hearing us tonight. I respect the importance of choice and the importance of each family's ability to do what they think is best for their children. My concern, like so many others, is for the youngest in our community who don't yet have the choice to be vaccinated. Those parents, those families don't yet have the full range of options to protect their children. We all want to do what's best for our children. And until we have the choice to vaccinate them, masks are the best way. So what am I afraid of if we're not wearing masks? Yes, I am afraid of death. Of course I am. I worry every day about my children. I worry when I put them in the car. I worry when I send them down the street to a friend's house. There are so many things to be afraid of when I'm thinking about the two people that are literally the most important thing that I've ever contemplated. So yeah, the numbers are low. I understand that. I'm grateful that our kids aren't more vulnerable to this. But the statistics aren't going to be a comfort if my kid becomes the statistic. The masks are a really low impact way to, I guess not a low impact way, but a low burden for the impact they can have. I'm also afraid of a disrupted school year. We all know that that can be just as much of a problem for their health, for their well-being, for their future. And even if kids aren't dangerously ill, they might be quarantined. We might have large groups of kids out, unable to participate in school, extracurriculars, athletics. That's a problem too. And masks can protect us from another disrupted school year. I don't want to wear a mask either. I agree that they're uncomfortable, but you know, it's a minimal discomfort compared to the benefits. I'm a classroom teacher, albeit not in this district, and I taught all last year wearing a mask to kids wearing a mask. We had plexiglass and shower curtains, and we made it work because the kids want to be here and they want to learn, but they also want to be safe. Masks are most effective when everyone's wearing them. I know kids don't wear them perfectly, but imperfect is better than not trying. And I really just want to be able to say that I did my best, that we all did our best to do whatever we could to protect them from this horrible disease that's changed our lives in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Esther Buxton.
My name is Esther Buxton. I live at 3808 Farmbrook Drive. I don't have a ton to say that other folks haven't touched on already. I think everybody's very concerned about their children in this upcoming school year, and we're all kind of a nervous wreck. I think right now, though, we have the chance to be proactive. Prior to Delta, we all had an experience where we were being reactive. We didn't have the knowledge, we didn't know. The Delta variant is new. It spreads more quickly, and it could potentially have more serious consequences for our children. We don't know what our children will be looking at in the future if they contract COVID or the Delta variant of COVID. We don't know enough about the long-term halt that these kids could face if they catch it, and it is not fair to have them look at a lifetime of potential illness or difficulties because we're afraid of these, or because they are controversial. I'd like to touch on the information about our zip codes and vaccination rates. There is no magic force field around Sylvania. We are very lucky that we are vaccinated at a high rate, but that doesn't mean we don't come and go, that we don't have a responsibility to our community as a whole to make good decisions. You know, our children can help spread COVID as well as get it. I think the last thing that I wanted to touch on is that I've heard death used several times as the litmus test for children. That's the bar that I've heard brought up. That breaks my heart. We cannot say that, oh, X amount of kids have died. Why should any child have to get ill and suffer whether or not they die? You know, a month ago, 19% of counties in the United States were at substantial or high spread of COVID. As of this week, we are at 98% of counties in the United States. So again, I just want to say Sylvania is not immune to the spread of COVID just because we've been lucky so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon Boland.
Brandon Boland, 8820 Gibson Court. Thank you to the board, and thank you, Dr. Motley, for putting together, it was 7 considerations, I think you mentioned at the beginning, right? So I appreciate your time here today. So everyone keeps mentioning the science and the data, but what I haven't heard tonight from the board or from anyone who spoke is any consideration, well, actually a couple people, of any studies or data behind if masks actually work. I think that's what we're here for. So the 7 considerations all included things like vaccination rates, cases, are those going up, things like that. But not one mention of, do masks work? Are they effective? If you look at the CDC or the ODH or the Lucas County Health Department and any studies that they've done on masks, which I looked through before coming here today, there's not one single study that shows any control group. Every single study that they've done will show a population of 1 million students, and by golly, the cases didn't go up in that school. All 1 million students, though, were at a school where masks were mandated. So what I strongly encourage you to do, Dr. Motley, is talk to any of your 6th grade science teachers and ask them if any student were to present a science project without a control group, if they would pass that science project. So let's talk about some of the protections that masks actually offer. Coronavirus is, and I think I heard the stat earlier, but it ranges anywhere between 0.006 microns to 1.2 microns. The common mask cloth will protect up to 5 microns and above. That, in other words, says that the mask has holes 5 times larger than the actual virus. That's like pouring sand through a fishing net. So if masks worked, then why, when Governor DeWine implemented a mask policy on July 23rd, 2020, did cases go from 1,444 new cases that day to on December 13th, just 5 months later, 9,266 new cases at our high, an increase of 541% after Governor DeWine mandated masks. Let's talk about the psychological impact that children have from covering their faces. I think Mr. Zepeda mentioned it earlier today. What about learning to read and seeing the teachers enunciate their words? What does it do to a child's immune system? I strongly suggest we study this as well. As cases go up, my concern is if you will take any of these mass studies into consideration. So I strongly suggest you add additional considerations to your list, Dr. Motley. So what will mandating masks do if that's a valid option for today? Who are we trying to protect? And here are some facts on that. There have been facts mentioned earlier today, but 336 kids in this country have died with COVID. In Ohio, only 6. The flu, which was only 8 months last flu season, from 2018 to 2019 was only 8 months. The CDC said 480 kids died of the flu during that flu season, an 8-month time period, as compared to 336, 18 months of COVID. More kids have died with the flu than they have with COVID. The flu is, scientifically speaking, more dangerous to kids. So when we talk about mandating masks, what kind of burden is that going to place on our children? Because from the science that I've seen, it doesn't keep kids safe. They are safe. And the real science, and there's real data to point to this. It doesn't keep the adults safe. They can get vaccinated if they so choose. They can go to a concert in Detroit with no mask, like I saw a couple friends do last night. No social distancing, because they have the choice.
Excuse me, Mr. Bowen, if you could wrap it up, you're like into almost 5 minutes.
Where there's perceived risk, there should also be choice. And if the parents are concerned, they should have the choice to tell their children either to wear a mask to school or to use the at-home school option that we've all, as taxpayers, paid for as an option. But most importantly, I've heard the word fear mentioned several times here tonight. I'm going to pray for everybody in this room tonight, because in my house, my faith is stronger than my fear. And as your faith grows stronger, your fear subsides. My only fear is God. And as for me and my house, we will continue to serve the Lord. And that will kill any fear.
That's me. Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Spielis, and I live at 5732 Phillips Avenue. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me today. I am the mother of 2 children at Maplewood School, and I get nervous speaking, so I wrote down my thoughts ahead of time. I just want to say that I think it's safe to say that no one here is happy that we have to be having this discussion today on the upcoming year's mask policy. This spring, as we were leaving for summer break, it looked as though we had turned a corner and we were looking forward to getting back to a more normal way of life. Since the Sylvania School District came out early with their mask optional stance, much has changed. We are seeing a higher transmission rates within our community. Lucas County is now under the recommendation of facial coverings indoor for all vaccinated and unvaccinated people. The Delta variant is much more contagious than what we were dealing with this spring. An overwhelming majority of the scientific and medical community is recommending students follow a universal masking protocol, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, and the state of Ohio. Even our Lucas County Health Department has issued new guidances for COVID protocols in our schools, which include facial coverings, and has issued guidance on quarantining for close contact instances of which appear can be affected by whether there is universal masking or not. Many of our local businesses and schools in Lucas County are now requiring facial coverings. Our country is not adequately vaccinated. We have stalled at around 50%. While it is great that our Sylvania district is above average, we know that we're not isolated. While I am thrilled that our summer programs were able to operate safely, this is a backward-looking stance. We are seeing increased community spread, and we do not know that we can maintain this level of safety today within our schools with all of our faculty and students back this fall. If the policy is to stay where it is today, it is completely reactive, only changing when we see too many sick people. In addition, the majority of students are unvaccinated, with almost all elementary students not having a vaccine option available to them. In order to receive the full benefit of masking, people around you need to be wearing a mask too. If mask wearing is left a choice, it will divide students into groups of masked and unmasked students, and that can be problematic socially. There is no way of ensuring that students whose parents want them to wear a mask will, and the Lucas County Health Department, along with the scientific and medical community, agrees that masking is one of the best strategies for reducing transmission, especially when we cannot adequately social distance in our classrooms. We have the obligation to protect our students, our faculty, our community, and wearing a facial covering to help ensure that we are doing everything possible to take care of each other is a simple and small ask. We need to all work together to ensure that we have as many students as possible learning in person at their public schools, and to help get to a point where we don't have to have this conversation anymore. So I thank you for your consideration, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Jamie Darkford? Was that close?
Good evening, my name is Jamie Dargett. I'm at 7405 Oak Hill Drive, Sylvania 43560. My daughter is in elementary school at Maplewood. I also am a pediatrician, so I spend all day, every day, taking care of immunocompromised children. I think I don't have many new comments that haven't already been addressed. I think just as Esther brought up, to bring up the data about the zip code, while it is promising that the rates of vaccination in our zip code is higher than the rest of the county, overall our county is only at 50%, and clearly we don't all live in a bubble, we're very mobile. Even if the children do stay within the zip code all day, parents, family members don't. Some work all throughout Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan. Many are traveling all over the country and all over the world. And again, while I'm happy that these summer programs did not have any cases of COVID linked to them, I think at this point, with the rise of the Delta variant, that information is pretty much irrelevant. We're seeing drastic increase of cases throughout the country, numerous children, the number of children becoming ill from this is significantly higher than it has been in the last year and a half that we've been dealing with this. Also have to keep in mind that the COVID that we've come to know in the last year and a half is changing, and that children appear to be becoming sicker with the Delta variant, and we are just learning about the long-term effects of COVID illness in children over the last year and a half. We don't know what this new Delta variant and other variants are going to show. I think that we also have to look realistically what's going on around in the country. Communities with high incidences of COVID who started school earlier and that did not have masking policies in place have had numerous cases in the first weeks of school and had to close down and go back to virtual learning. Practically speaking, I'm pretty confident that none of us want to go to that. We also have to keep in mind that there are many other school districts in the community that do have some mandatory mask policies in place. Toledo Public Schools, Ottawa Hills, Washington Local. And I think our Sylvania School District falls in between all of those in terms of school size and demographics. So I think if those leaders find it reasonable, I think ours can too. I think that at a minimum, I would hope to see that if there is not a universal masking policy, that the board consider one at least for elementary school students who again are not able to receive a vaccine at this time, or mask optional for those who are vaccinated and mask required for those who are unvaccinated, including elementary school students and their teachers. A somewhat rhetorical question for the board to consider, not to answer right now, would be that if after tonight it's decided to continue with the mask only policy, what data would you use to change that policy? There was a lot of statistics stated tonight, and I think it just comes back to, as professionals, I think we all have to know the limits of our experiences and expertise. And as community leaders, we trust that you're going to use the expertise and the advice of those around you. And we have public health officials, epidemiologists, infectious disease specialists, immunologists, pediatricians, critical care doctors, emergency room physicians within the city, within the state, within the country, recommending universal masking for those who are unvaccinated. So I wish you'd take their experience and expertise into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Bernard.
My name is Bobby Bernard. I live at 8352 Megan Drive. First, I'd like to say I have a sophomore and a senior, and I'm also a frontline medical worker. So I've been dealing with this for 18 months. I want to agree with what this gentleman said over here, which is the masks that you guys are trying to talk about mandating are not medical grade. They are a couple layers of fabric, and those medical grade masks, which our children are not wearing, are only meant for 4 hours. My child today is going to, or on Monday, will be at school for 12 hours between her mentoring day and her theater day. So if I had a medical grade mask, I should be changing out her mask 3 to 4 times. That is not happening. So they are just rebreathing the same wet, dirty mask for their entire day. As a medical provider, we are required to change our masks under all of the situations which he said, and our children are not doing that. On top of which, 90% of the children are not actually wearing the masks appropriately. So if they're not wearing the masks appropriately, they are not medical grade, or they are not being changed in the appropriate time frame with which the standard should be. Secondly, I appreciate everyone's choice. I feel as a parent, it should be my choice. I don't put French fries or sugar into other kids' mouths, because that's not my choice as a parent to deal with their childhood obesity. or their diabetes. It is not your choice as a medical or as a school board to determine my child's health issues. It's mine as their parent. And until somebody takes my kids away from me, it should still be my choice as their parent. Everybody today that has their mask on, I appreciate your stance. However, every one of you took your masks off, set it on this podium, and touched it. Corona can live on a hard surface for days, okay? And we didn't clean this. Your mask, you breathed through that mask, so both sides of that mask was infected. You laid it on this podium, you put your hands on it, and you put it back on your face. I feel like these masks are just to make the general populace feel well. As a medical professional, we wear medical grade masks to protect against medical instances. The cloth masks that everyone's wearing, it's just to make people feel better. And I get that we did it because 18 months ago, we didn't know how to treat this disease. That's why we shut the country down. It gave the chance for the medical providers to figure out how to treat this disease and get the ventilators and the vaccines going. But the cloth masks that we are suggesting to require our children to wear are not protecting them from anything more than a tissue in their face for 7 hours, rebreathing everything. Secondly, or thirdly, as a medical professional, I'm going to tell you that viruses are meant to mutate. So this Delta variant is not going to be the last we hear of it. So if we're going to continue to change our opinions and our minds every time this virus mutates, we're going to be here constantly. That is why there's a new flu vaccine every year, because viruses are meant to mutate to survive. Lastly, I want you to look around, and I realize this is a very small sampling of our Sylvania community. The majority of the people here are not masked. As a medical professional, I'm at risk by speaking to you publicly because my health institution could say something. I know that other people have that same concern. So I ask you to look around at the general population of this room and see that 90% of your constituents here are not masked. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan Pomrink.
Hi, I just moved here like 3 days ago.
If you could state your name and your address
Yeah.
for the record.
Yeah, I'm Stefan Pomrenke. I live at 5902 Main Street. I do remember that because I just moved here. I'm a family physician. I have an MD. I have a Master in Public Health. I have a Master of Arts in Theological Studies. I went to seminary also when I was doing my public health and my MD. I used to work in St. Paul, Minnesota, at a federally qualified health center. It was a community health center. 40% of our patients were uninsured. Very different demographics than here. I saw COVID on a way too much basis. I would go out and swab people. I faced the beast. It's terrible. It's wicked. Many of my patients died from it. Good people. I have several patients that have long haulers, COVID, and I referred them to the U of Minnesota. It's bad. I have 2 kids that are going to go to Maplewood. They're 10, 6. And I ripped up everything in St. Paul to move here so that they could have a better life, to be with Grandma, who's down the street, 5 minutes away, so they can ride their bike there. And, but I guess my main point here is the business side of things. Like, this is good for business to like maintain better control of the disease amongst the children population. As a family physician, I wrote so many sick notes for people that had COVID. And so then once one person in the family had COVID, then the other people would have to quarantine, and then they'd be off of work. Think of all the missed work. And so when we have a Delta variant, in which it's more transmissible, and it's just running through families, whew, that's a lot of business that's lost. Think about the money. Please think about the money. I am fully vaccinated. My colleague was fully vaccinated, but she got COVID. It's pretty effective, but it's not 100% effective. It happens, and she was very healthy. The other thing is the pediatrician mentioned is there's something called MISC, which is multi-inflammatory syndrome of children, and that's what children get after COVID. In my family, I saw something not MISC, but very similar to that. It is terrible. And again, the long-term effects of COVID are not good. When I was looking at the Ohio Department of Health website and seeing the trend of COVID in this area, there was a beautiful lull, right? And then there's like an uptick. So when I'm looking at my stocks, I'm thinking now is the time to buy. If a stock is low. But when you're talking about public health and things are going up again, oh, that is not the time to relax things. So I think that we would all save a lot of money if we would actually mask. Again, the AAP recommends this, the CDC recommends this. Leadership is about being proactive about things. And the other thing as a practitioner is I saw very little influenza this year. Like zilch. I diagnosed one person with influenza because everybody was, well, not everybody, but most people were wearing masks because that actually stops viruses from going places. So thank God for that. And as a Christian, my charge is to serve the least of these. And that, as a society, is how we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Dussault.
Hi, my name is Sarah Dussault. I live at 5753 Phillips. I am not an expert on contagious diseases. I am not an expert on global pandemics. I am so sick of COVID-19. I want to go back to normal, just like everybody in this room does. I think everybody that spoke today was incredibly passionate. Everybody here loves their children. Everybody here wants what's best for their children. We just don't agree on what it is. So I just want to say, when we go back, regardless of whether there's a mask mandate, my kids will be wearing masks because they're in elementary school and they can't be vaccinated yet, and I don't want them to get sick. So regardless of whether it's being forced upon us or whatever, my kids will wear them because I think it's important. Do I wish that it would be mandated for everyone? Absolutely. I don't want my kids to be the only ones in their class with masks on. My daughter has such low self-esteem. I mean, I can only imagine the first kid that says, "Why are you wearing a mask?" She is going to bawl her eyes out. And it's not her choice, it's my choice. I want her to stay safe. I've got to do what's best for her. I know that everybody here feels the exact same way. We all love our kids. I would say if there are people that are very uncertain about sending their kids in masks, when I sent my kids back to school last year in masks, we had the fabric masks. They were terrible. They came home sweaty, they came home they said they couldn't breathe. I talked to one of my friends who is in the healthcare field, and she said, buy disposable masks. I bought the disposable masks like they would wear, in a doctor's office or a hospital or whatever. No more problems. So if we do go to a mask mandate, that's just an option to hopefully make it more bearable for people. The disposable masks, my kids had zero complaints. They don't care about wearing them at all. They love it. So just in conclusion, what I would say is, again, I'm not an expert. And that's kind of the point. I would say very few people in the city of Sylvania are experts on COVID-19. There are experts. They're talking. You guys aren't experts. I mean, it really, really sucks to be you because you're not really qualified to make this decision, but you have to make it. So I'm hoping that when you do make it, you'll listen to the experts, you'll follow the science, and any decisions you make will be based on the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Jackson.
Good evening, my name is Amy Jackson. I'm at 2315 Stony Brook Boulevard in Sylvania, Ohio, 43560. Thank you, members of the board and Dr. Motley, for allowing us here this evening and for taking all this time in consideration on this very serious matter. My request is to make the masks mandatory for our most vulnerable population in Sylvania, Ohio right now, which is our elementary school students, until at least the vaccine is available to them. At that time, as proposed by other community members, then it would appear more reasonable and fair to make it an option. As we know, as the other medical professionals have stated, the Delta variant, the Delta Plus variant, and Lambda variant are here and they are different. All the data, or most of the data referenced by many here, is not about these variants. These numbers are not, it's apples and oranges. So the data we talk about now is new and it's evolving. It's going to be evolving tomorrow and Monday when I start school. What we talk about in our house as well is that what is right and what we know is not always popular or easy. This virus doesn't care what we want. This virus doesn't care that it's making education difficult and unsatisfactory. This virus doesn't care that it's hard. It doesn't. It's not ideal for anyone. It's not ideal for us as parents, as educators, as students. I'm also a healthcare professional. I wear an N95 mask on my face for 10 plus hours and come home with lines on my face. I don't love it. We know that the CDC, the ODH, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Lucas County Health Department, all of the major medical bodies are pleading and saying very clearly that it is 100% recommended for not only unvaccinated people to wear a mask, for all people to wear a mask right now, indoors. That is their recommendation. These are the major medical bodies who have been designated to give this information. They are giving it to everyone, to the powers that be, to all of you sitting here. And they are saying, this is what we recommend. We are the professionals. This is what we are giving you the information to do. When we talk about death, death is not quality of life. I will tell you as a healthcare professional, I've seen some pretty poor quality of life. The people are not dead, but I can tell you that their quality of life for their foreseeable future, if not their entire future, is different. Can you picture your children, because this is happening, long haul in children, as many of the medical professionals, thank you, are seeing, is that their scholastic abilities are greatly altered. Children cannot read numbers on their papers. They're having brain fog and cannot recall what was taught to them the day prior. Strong athletes that play travel sports are no longer able to even play their sport any longer because their health, their lung capacity is potentially forever altered. That means not only do the sports they love are going to change, gotcha, that means that maybe walking down the aisle without an oxygen tank, walking in the park with a loved one, carrying their newborn child, that might not happen. And folks, that's reality. In conclusion, in an email I had sent prior, I'm saying by the following guidance of all the major medical bodies nationally and statewide, you esteemed members of the board and Dr. Motley, you who care deeply, and we know you do, you can help prevent many children from having life-altering conditions that we are still learning about. You have the power to do the right thing to protect our vulnerable elementary school population that does not have the choice yet to be vaccinated. You have the power to allow them to attend in-person learning, as we all knew that the AAP says they should do, but safely. I am pleading as a parent and healthcare provider that you do the right thing that you have been trusted and elected to do, to protect our elementary school students and follow the recommendations of the CDC, the OJH, the AAP, and Lucas County Health Department, and implement mandatory masking for all elementary age students and staff. Thank you so much for your time.
Bryce I can't really read it. That's it.
Doesn't look like it. Should have been a doctor.
Right.
So, my name is Bryce Bookmiller. I'm at 8202 Little Road in Sylvania. Firstly, Dr. Motley, I appreciate you having a forum like this to let everybody have an opportunity to speak to you and to the board directly as well. A couple things, guys. As a parent, I have 5 children. Seems like a lot these days. I have a daughter who's starting at Highland Elementary School this year. I moved here to this district from Sylvania, Ohio. I went to Highland Elementary and then graduated from Northview as well. And things have changed, obviously. We have a lot of parents here that have absolute rational fear for their children and their protection, and I understand that. But there's also some irrational fears that we might be experiencing as a community as well. And with not clear guidance, then the mask mandate has worked. It's not worked. 2 masks, no masks. We've been going back and forth. And the science, obviously, we're listening to some of these healthcare providers, some of the doctors in the room as well. Obviously, they're looking for the benefit of all of our children. It's a very emotional situation. But if you look around, you see children, some wearing helmets riding their bikes, some without. Some are more risk averse, some are take the risks. I've had my own daughter jump off of a 5-foot wall and hurt herself. I had a son who just got his wrist broken in football. So children are going to be naturally accident prone. But one thing that's not being discussed really here tonight is we're sending our children to get education. That's not just school study, different subject matters as well, but there's social cues that are important to our children as well. And when they wear masks, they're unable to see each other's faces. They're unable to see when one of their friends might be upset or nervous or sad or happy. And that really affects our children's ability to learn in a community. It really affects our children's ability to really have camaraderie and some normalcy. And I think it's very important that we take note of that, because ultimately when we send our children to school, it's not just to learn the subject matter. I can't tell you the things that I learned in 4th grade. In fact, they had a show about, are you smarter than a 5th grader? I think many people probably would fail. So ultimately we do remember our lifelong friends, and we do remember what it was like when certain emotions hit us, and I think masks don't allow that to take place. And obviously, if it's mandated to our children, they don't have the ability to be freely expressive of themselves. And obviously, if there are some parents in here that feel nervous about your children going to school and you find it appropriate for them to wear masks, more power to you. If that makes you feel more comfortable and you believe in the science behind that data, I have no problem with that as a parent. But if you're going to mandate my children wear a mask, that is where I find it inappropriate. I've had COVID. Still haven't been able to taste or smell for 6 months, which you think it changed my eating behavior, but it hasn't. But my point being is that it affects everybody differently. And with the science constantly changing and the goal constantly changing, it makes me nervous as to implement something that's so stringent and so important for such a long period of time without a goal set in mind of when we would take them off as well. And over the summertime, we've all realized and been seeing all of our friends and family through large parties and so on and so forth, there hasn't been a significant spike in the sickness, and it is constantly mutating, and I understand that. But everybody's ability to personally protect themselves is important. And if you do want to protect yourselves, by all means do so. But do not mandate everybody else to follow suit if they don't wish to. I think that children should be able to look at each other, be close to each other, hug each other, love each other. And we are teaching that first and foremost as educators, are you not? Because ultimately, when you start to look at our children, you have to see the hope in their eyes. And by disallowing them the opportunity to have that kind of camaraderie and engagement, they're not going to have the wholesome engagement that they should. And I think it's very important to note that you allow our children the opportunity to either wear a mask for their safety or not allow them to wear a mask for their safety. It's up to the children and up to the parents ultimately to decide what's best for their children. And I think that's important. So thank you very much for your time, folks.
Thank you. Aaron Johnson.
Hi, I also want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. I know there's a lot, and we're probably repeating a lot of the same information, so I'll be quick. I hear a lot
Aaron,
too.
We need your name.
Oh, yeah, Aaron Johnson, 5442 Wadsworth Drive, Sylvania, Ohio, 43560. Thank you. You bet. So the main thing that I want to bring up that I don't think has been discussed in detail yet is that the mask mandate for kids What I'm hoping for is that by the time a vaccine becomes available, we won't have to have that mask mandate anymore. And there's been a lot of talk about fear, that those of us who advocate for masking for our kids are doing so just out of fear. That's not necessarily it. It's our job as parents to advocate for what's best for our children. I have my child brush her teeth every morning and every night. I make sure she has fruits and vegetables every day. It's part of making sure our kids are safe and healthy. It's not just fear, and I think that I want to make sure that we acknowledge that. But also, yeah, it is scary, the potential harm that can come to our kids, and making sure that we're doing what we can to prevent it. We know that when everybody masks, cases go down. But when we are saying, well, if you want to mask your kid, then that's fine, then that means my kid is doing what we can do to help protect your child, but the same benefit isn't seen by everyone. And I just want to make sure that we're taking time to put our children first and not focus solely on fear of control. It's not about controlling you and your choice. It's about making sure that our kids are safe, and the effect that it can have when they go home too, and their families that have maybe immunocompromised people in the household. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Rochon?
Hello, thank you. My name is Stephen Rochon. I reside at 9249 Nate Court. I am a retired Air Force Staff Sergeant. I have served our country. I've deployed twice. I'm also a taxpayer of the in Sylvania, Ohio. I'm a parent of 2 students, one at Northview, a freshman, and one at Highland Elementary, a 4th grader. I'm also an alumni of the class of 1999 from Northview. Tonight, I'm going to read you my notice of liability. Dr. Motley, Mr. Zeroff, Mrs. Hoffman, Mr. Slutsky, Mr. Feller, Mrs. Coughlin, Mrs. Lovelet, Mr. Swaggerty, and Mr. Pugh. I am a parent of Nathaniel Rochon and Trinity Rochon who attend your schools. I am writing to you to express my grave concerns regarding the compulsory use of face masks in your school. It has come to my attention that there are widely known hazards, health risks, and dangers associated with the use of face masks, which can result in both physical and psychological harm to the user. It is reasonable to expect that you have considered such issues carefully and familiarized yourself with the available evidence prior to making a decision to compel pupils in your care to wear masks. However, insofar as you may not have done so to date, I wish to draw these issues to your attention, and I call upon you to take immediate remedial action. Please be advised that I am also of the view that compelling my children to wear a face mask is a direct violation of their right to bodily integrity and or personal autonomy, and thus constitutes an abuse for the avoidance of any doubt. I object to my children being subjected to such abuse and call for an end to the same forthwith. Enclosed in my letter that I sent to you today, that I also hand-delivered as a notarized copy to Mr. Zeroff, I emailed to each of you, including the principals. You will find for your immediate pursuit is abundant evidence demonstrating the health risks associated with face masks. Please refer to my enclosed appendix. In light of the available scientific and medical data, it is evident that face masks constitutes a hazard and pose a risk and or danger to the health and well-being of your pupils, including my children. I would respectfully draw your attention to the legal duties under law owed to my children whilst on your premises and or in your care. Duties also arise in the context of the school-pupil relationship and or out of an assumption of responsibility based on knowledge of potential dangers and or risks and or hazards in the school environment, such as those highlighted above. I would respectfully point out the consequences of ignoring the scientific and medical data and continue to implement a compulsory mask policy would constitute a dereliction of your duty of care and has the potential to cause harm or injury to my children. I would therefore call upon you to take this notice seriously and afford it the attention that it deserves. In light of the above and on the basis of precautionary principles as enshrined in law, I urge you to take all necessary action to prevent any further harm to my children with immediate effect. In that regard, I hereby call upon you to take the following actions forthwith. Place an immediate ban on the compulsory use of face masks in your school. Please be advised that I object to my children being subjected to such requirements and demand an immediate end to any compulsion to wear any such items whilst at school. Confirm by return in writing that you will immediately cease and desist from compelling my children to wear a face mask in your school. Furnish me with a copy of all risk assessments carried out by your school in connection with face masks. Provide confirmation by return of your staff and teachers, including such individuals you have placed in charge of my children, have been fully trained in connection with the health risks associated with face masks, including with regards to recognizing the health contraindications from the use of the same. Take notice, any failure on your part to take immediate action to address and remedy the matters outlined above will render such an inaction highly irresponsible and potentially damaging to my children. If any harm befalls upon my children as a result of your acts and omissions, you and your school shall be held liable for the same. Take further note, as you have planned on notice on foregoing grave and serious issues regarding face masks, any failure to take action as a consequence of your position and remit may also expose you to personal liability in law for any adverse effects suffered by my children as a result of your actions and or omissions. Warning, for the avoidance of any doubt, if you fail to respond to this letter as requested or fail to take the actions outlined above, I shall have no alternative but to take further steps as may be necessary, including by way of legal action, in order to protect the health and well-being of my children. If legal action becomes necessary, I shall rely on the contents of this letter at an appropriate time to seek to fix you with an order for the costs of an incident to same. I would suggest you bring this letter to the attention of your insurance provider, and I would be obliged if you would kindly furnish me with their contact details. Due to the urgency of this matter, I look forward to a response by return. And I will allow my wife to have the last word because she's my boss. Please let us, as the taxpayer and the parent, make the decision of what is best for our children. If you want to have your child wear a mask, great. If you don't, great. You don't get to tell me what to do with my children. Nobody does, and that is my God-given right. And I yield back to you, Ms. President.
Jordan Euclid. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I've never done anything like this before.
I need you to start with your name
I'm
and
sorry.
address.
My name is Jordan Euclid. I live at 4942 Borland. I've never done anything like this before, and I'll be completely honest. My son went to kindergarten at Hillview, and I never even got a chance. I worked so much to make it up to the school. But this was worth it, and my wife was just short of begging me to come up here and say something. I've heard a lot of reasons back and forth. That's fine. I have my reasons why my kid will not wear a mask, and I don't feel like I owe anybody in this room an explanation why. That's my choice. We all face risks in life. So the only thing I kind of want to say tonight is how this is going to affect my family if you guys decide to implement the masks. Last year, when the mask came into force, we pulled my son out of school. I'm blessed. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. She had the ability to do that. If you do this, I'm going to do it again this year, and it'll be the last opportunity you have to educate my son. He's an incredibly smart kid. You guys are at a loss if you don't get that opportunity. I hope he gets to come back, but I have my reasons, and they're strong enough to make me consider other options than having my kid at your school system, and I hope it doesn't come to that.
Thank you. Jeremy Sherry.
Jeremy Cherry, 5619 Birch Hollow Court, Sylvania, 43560.
Wasn't sure I was going to talk this evening. Most of the things I wanted to get out there probably were said. There's a couple things maybe that weren't, but that I want to stress a little more. Obviously, very emotional. A lot of people have shared personal stories, personal experiences. Want to be very careful about the way I say this. It doesn't matter. It's not that I don't care. It's that it doesn't matter. The thing that matters is the evidence. What does the evidence say? So when we talk about mask use, years and years and years of studies were done pre-COVID, demonstrating very clearly and generally accepted by the medical community that even surgical quality masks do not mitigate transmission of viruses, period. The evidence was clear. Post-COVID, there have been a number of studies done, but most of those studies don't control for variables. So they include things like ventilation. They include things like hand hygiene, social distancing, cutting down class sizes to accommodate social distancing, things like that. The only randomized controlled trial that I'm aware of demonstrates very clearly that mask use does not slow down or does not prevent transmission of COVID. One study that I'm aware of that's a randomized controlled trial that controls for everything else. And it's very clear that it does nothing to cut down transmission. The only thing I care about is the evidence. Someone said earlier that you guys aren't professionals and you're not equipped to make this decision. I would question that. I think you are equipped to make this decision, whether you're medical professionals or not, because what you can do, and as a matter of fact, what you should do, is look at the evidence, period. I don't care what the CDC says. I don't care what OD8 says. I don't care what Lucas County Health Department says. I care what the evidence says. And everything I've seen says that the evidence says masks do not decrease transmission of COVID. That's what I wanted to, and then one more point, I apologize. This decision you're making is important beyond right now, beyond this school year, because COVID is likely endemic. So it's not going to go away. We will live with COVID likely forever, and all of us will probably get it at some point. That's what the experts say now. We will not be able to eradicate it. Too many variants, too quickly, it's out there. And it can live in animal reservoirs, right? Where some viruses, like mumps, things like that, can't. COVID can't. So it will likely be endemic, just like the flu. It will be here forever. So the decision you make is going to have ramifications likely beyond the next several weeks or months or this school year. So I would like you to look at the evidence when you make your decision. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Tara Aston.
Hello. I was not prepared to do this tonight, so here I am. My name is Tara Aston, 7876 Old Sycamore Lane, Spain, Ohio, 43560. I am just up here today to talk, and I support people who want to wear masks and people who don't. But just as Americans, our freedom and our choice of freedom, and that's why people come here, they want freedom. We have the freedom to choose what we put in our bodies and what we do with our bodies, just like I feel we should have the freedom to decide if we want to wear a mask and if we don't. We're giving people opportunities to do homeschool. We're giving people opportunities to wear masks, but I think it should be a choice on both sides. You can wear a mask or you don't need to wear a mask. It's also a concern for our immune systems. When kids are in masks all the time and not getting exposed to anything, your immune system weakens. So at some point, kids will start getting sick, very sick over small things. It will make them more sick than what they would be if their immune system was strong and built up. Every morning you get up, you get exposed to things. It strengthens your immune system. It makes it stronger. Our bodies need that. And by trying to prevent being exposed to anything is not going to do anything good for the immune system. Also, I don't know, I just am so confused at how people can go to packed stadiums right now with no masks. My husband and son went to the home run derby, sold out, no masks. You can go to concerts, no masks. Everything else, no masks, and now here we come going back to let's put these masks back on just to go to school. We can play on the basketball team at school, which I don't want to get rid of sports, please don't think that. We can, we can play basketball at school, touch the ball, pass it back and forth, breathe all over each other, run around. We can wrestle, we can play soccer. But then when we go to school, we have to put a mask on to sit next to somebody. And it's just confusing. It doesn't make sense. I don't know if any of you have had your mask on in the winter when you walked outside and you see your cold air coming in and out as you're breathing. It's your air coming in and out. These masks are not effective. And just as someone said earlier, after Mike DeWine said the mask mandate, all the numbers continue to go up. So if it was working, why is that happening? I just think it comes down to a parental choice of what you choose to put in your child, not put in your child, give to your family. It's all the American freedom of the choice in our country. And so please just let parents make the choice for their own children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is everybody. On behalf of the board and everybody up here, the superintendent, we want to thank you for coming. We know you're all very passionate, one side or the other. You know, we aren't experts, but I can tell you that all of us sitting up here are really trying to do what's right, what's best for kids, to keep our schools open. We know kids need to be in school. We want everyone to be safe. We don't have all the answers. I promise you, we're reading your emails, we're losing sleep, we're giving it a lot of thought, and we're all trying to do the right thing. And I know that's what you're out here advocating for. So thank you for coming. Thank you everyone for being so respectful. So we can all disagree and be respectful. And with that, I'm going to move that we go into executive session for the purpose of compensation of public employees. Not about this. We won't talk about this.
Stay longer?
We have to stay longer, yeah. Yeah, we won't be talking about